The billionaire walked into his house unannounced on Christmas Eve. His coat was still on when the front door clicked shut behind him. He took 2 steps forward. Then suddenly, someone ran at him. A yellow-gloved hand clamped over his mouth. His breath stopped. His body slammed backward into the dark. "Don't make a sound," a woman whispered, shaking. "Please." It was Abigail, his maid. She dragged him into a narrow service closet and shut the door just enough to leave a thin crack. Her finger pressed hard against his lips. Patrick could hear his own heart pounding in his ears. Footsteps moved across the marble floor. Slow, deliberate, close. Through the crack, Patrick saw his wife step into view, then his business partner, Roland Keene. They stood inches apart, calm, relaxed, like nothing in the world was wrong. Patrick Dickinson heard his wife calmly discuss the exact hour of his death. "He should be unconscious by now," Roland said. Catherine sighed, irritated. "I doubled the dose in his evening tea last night." Patrick's legs nearly gave out. The dizziness, the weakness, the sickness he had ignored, all made sense in that instant. Christmas was not a holiday. It was the deadline. Abigail tightened her grip on his wrist, her eyes locked on his, filled with fear and certainty. "If you walk out there," she whispered, "you won't make it to morning." And just like that, Patrick realized the most dangerous place in the world was his own home, and the only person trying to save him was the woman he barely noticed. Before we continue, if you want to know why would the maid save the billionaire from his own family, hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you want to find out why Abigail risked everything and what Patrick discovers next. Stay with me. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Because he thought he knew everyone in his house until one whisper changed everything. Christmas Eve in Greenwich, Connecticut was supposed to be quiet for Patrick Dickinson. He wanted one peaceful evening at home before the holiday chaos began. So he left Boston early, drove straight to the estate, and told no one. No call, no text, no warning. He wanted to surprise Catherine and prove he could do normal things. The gate opened automatically. The yard lights were on, Christmas decorations glowing against the colonial facade. But the house felt too quiet. Patrick grabbed his briefcase and walked fast to the front door. He pictured Catherine smiling, maybe teasing him for coming home without notice. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The smell was wrong. Not pine, not cinnamon. It was a strong, clean smell mixed with something bitter, like antiseptic that had spilled and dried. Patrick stood still, listening. No music, no voices, no kitchen noise. He took 2 steps into the hall. Someone ran at him from the side. A yellow-gloved hand clamped over his mouth tight. A second hand grabbed his wrist and yanked him back into the dark. The briefcase dropped. Patrick tried to shout, but his voice died under the palm. "Sir, please," a woman whispered, shaking. "Do not make a sound." Patrick knew the voice. Abigail, his maid. She dragged him into a narrow service closet near the pantry and pulled the door almost shut, not locked, just barely open, a thin crack to see through. Abigail put one finger up, a warning. Then she held her breath like she was listening to the walls. Footsteps crossed the marble floor outside, slow and calm. Not a stranger, someone who belonged. Abigail leaned close. "If they hear you," she whispered, "you will not leave this house." Patrick forced himself to breathe through his nose. He leaned to the crack. He saw the living room and the Christmas tree. Perfect gifts, perfect lights. And right beside the fireplace stood Catherine, dressed in a silk blouse and pearls, holding a porcelain teacup. Across from her stood Roland Keene, Patrick's business partner of 12 years, smiling like he had no worries. Catherine laughed softly and touched Roland's arm. Patrick's hands went numb. Roland spoke first. "He is still conscious," he said. "How is he still conscious?" Catherine's voice stayed calm. "I doubled the dose," she replied. "Last night in his evening tea." Roland let out a small laugh. "And he still went to work this morning." Catherine's face tightened. "Then tonight we will finish it." The words hit Patrick like a physical blow. Every dizzy spell, every weak morning, the times he had to sit down in boardrooms and pretend he was fine. He had blamed stress. He had blamed age. He had blamed travel. He had blamed anything except this. His own wife, his own business partner. Abigail's fingers gripped his wrist steady and firm. She was telling him, "Stay quiet, stay alive." Catherine turned toward the kitchen. Patrick pulled back into the closet as her heels clicked closer, then stopped. A cabinet opened. Glass clinked. A spoon stirred. Catherine spoke again, lower now. "Abigail has been watching me," Roland answered sharp. "Then deal with her." Catherine sighed. "After tonight, Abigail will not be a problem." Abigail did not blink. Her face showed pain for 1 second, then control, like she had already decided what she would do. Catherine walked away. The footsteps faded. Roland's voice drifted after her. "Make sure the security footage is handled." Catherine's reply was distant but clear. "Already done." Patrick leaned against the shelf, trying to keep his legs steady. Abigail waited, listening until the house went quiet again. Then she opened the door and motioned. They slipped into the back hallway. The one staff used to move between rooms without being seen. Patrick's throat was dry. "Abigail," he whispered, "why are you doing this?" She did not waste time. "Because they are killing you," she said. "And because I saw it." Patrick shook his head like that could erase what he heard. "I need proof," he said. "I need to confront them." Abigail grabbed his sleeve and held him back. "Not here," she said. "Not today." "This is my home," Patrick whispered. Abigail's voice softened, but it stayed strong. "It is their trap," she said. "This house is the fastest place for you to die." A door closed upstairs. Both of them froze. Abigail pulled him toward the side exit. They passed the kitchen counter. The teacup sat there, steam still rising, a small sprig of holly beside it like a Christmas decoration. Patrick's hand moved toward his pocket for his phone. Abigail caught it. "No calls," she said. "I can call security," Patrick whispered. "I can call the police." Abigail shook her head. "Your security was reassigned last week," she said. "Your friends can be bought. One call and they know where you are." Patrick stared at her. "How do you know?" Abigail swallowed. "I heard names," she said. "I saw men come to the wine cellar when you were in Boston. And Catherine asked me about my family 2 days ago, like she wanted to know who would miss me." Patrick felt sick. Abigail reached into her apron pocket and showed him a tiny glass vial wrapped in tissue. Inside was cloudy residue. "I took this from your teacup last week," she said. "You said you wanted chamomile. She gave you something else. I saved what was left in the saucer because my gut told me something was wrong." Patrick stared at the vial like it could burn him. "We can test it," he whispered. Abigail nodded once. "Yes, but not with anyone connected to you," she said. "Not yet." Right now, Abigail opened the side door. Cold December air rushed in, sharp and wet. She pointed to her modest sedan parked near the service gate. "Get in," she said. "Now." Patrick hesitated and looked back at the bright tree in the living room, at the life he thought was real. Then Catherine's voice floated down the hall, sweet and controlled. "Patrick, are you home?" Abigail's face went still. She pushed him toward the car, and Patrick understood that the next sound he made might be his last. Patrick slid into Abigail's old sedan and pulled the door shut without a sound. Abigail started the engine and backed out fast, steady, like she had rehearsed this. In the mirror, Patrick saw the hallway light turn on. A shadow crossed the glass. Catherine. Patrick dropped low in the seat. Abigail drove behind the hedges, took the service road, and reached the gate. The sensor beeped once. The gate opened. No guards appeared. No one stopped them. They rolled out into the street, and the gate closed like nothing was wrong. Patrick tried to breathe, but his chest felt tight. His mind kept replaying Catherine's voice, calm and measured, like she was discussing dinner plans, not his death. He reached for his phone. "I need to call someone," he whispered. "The police. My lawyer. Anyone." Abigail caught his wrist. "No calls," she said. "Patrick, they are poisoning you." "I know," she answered. "That is why you cannot call. Phones can be tracked. Smartwatches can be tracked. Cars can be tracked. Your wife has access to your systems. Roland has money to buy people. One call gives them your location." Patrick stared at her. The word buy made his stomach twist. He had used money his whole life to solve problems, but he had never thought of it being used to erase him. "I have people I trust," Patrick said. "Howard Lasker, Retired state investigator. He will help. Abigail shook her head. I heard that name in your house 3 days ago, she said. I heard it with Roland's voice. I do not trust him. Patrick wanted to fight her on it, but a wave of sickness rose in his throat. His hands started shaking. The poison was still working, and Abigail was the only person left who saw him as worth saving. Abigail drove in silence for 20 minutes before pulling into a rest stop off I-95. She parked under a broken streetlight, engine still running. Patrick sat in the passenger seat, hands shaking, mind racing backward through the past 3 months. When did it start? September. That boardroom in Manhattan. Patrick had been presenting quarterly projections to investors when the room tilted sideways. He'd gripped the edge of the conference table, blamed it on dehydration, and kept talking. No one noticed, or if they did, they said nothing. 2 weeks later, Cambridge. A meeting with a manufacturing CEO Patrick was trying to acquire. He'd felt his legs go weak halfway through lunch, vision blurring at the edges. He'd excused himself, splashed cold water on his face in the bathroom, and returned like nothing happened. Signed the deal that afternoon. By October, the symptoms were constant. Dizziness every morning, fatigue that clung to him like wet clothing, memory lapses during phone calls. He'd blamed overwork, blamed travel, blamed turning 48. Catherine had noticed. Of course she had. She'd started bringing him supplements at breakfast. Little white pills in a porcelain dish. You need to take better care of yourself, Patrick. She'd made fresh-pressed juices, green ones, thick and bitter. Drink this. It has everything you need. She'd prepared evening tea herself, chamomile, she said, to help him sleep. And Patrick had taken it all. Grateful, trusting, believing his wife was trying to help. Abigail's voice pulled him back. You trusted her. Patrick looked at her. I did. She controlled everything, Abigail continued. Your food, your drinks, your medication. She told the kitchen staff she would handle your meals personally. Said you had dietary restrictions. Patrick's chest tightened. I don't have dietary restrictions. I know, Abigail said quietly, but no one questioned her. She is your wife. Patrick thought about the routines Catherine had built. The morning supplements, the afternoon juices, the evening tea, always delivered by her, always prepared in private. He'd thought it was love. Attention, care, it was control. What else did she do? Patrick asked. Abigail's hands gripped the steering wheel. She changed the security schedule 3 weeks ago. Said you wanted lighter coverage during the holidays. The night shift was cut. The perimeter guards were reassigned. She told them, you approved it. I never approved that. I know. Abigail glanced at him. I heard her on the phone with the security company. She used your name, your authority. No one questioned it. Patrick felt his stomach turn. Catherine had dismantled his protection without him knowing, made the house vulnerable, made him vulnerable. And he'd been too sick, too distracted, too trusting to notice. There were meetings, Abigail continued, late at night. After you went to bed, Roland would come through the side entrance. They would sit in your study for hours. I heard voices but could not make out words. One night I walked past and the door was open just enough. I saw papers, financial documents, your signature on things I do not think you signed. Patrick's hands clenched. Forgery. I think so. Abigail's voice was steady. I think they have been planning this for months, maybe longer. Patrick leaned his head back against the seat. How had he missed this? He prided himself on noticing details, on reading people, on seeing patterns in data. But he'd been blind to the pattern destroying him from inside his own home. Because he'd trusted Catherine. Because he'd believed marriage meant safety. Because he'd never imagined the person sleeping beside him was measuring poison into his tea. And Abigail. Patrick looked at her. 6 years she'd worked in his house. 6 years of arriving before dawn, leaving after dark, moving through rooms like a ghost. He didn't know where she was from, didn't know if she had family, didn't know her favorite food or her birthday or anything about the life she lived outside his walls. He'd never asked, never cared. She was the maid, invisible, functional, replaceable. Until tonight, when she became the only person standing between him and death. I'm sorry, Patrick said quietly. Abigail looked at him, confused. For what? for not seeing you. For 6 years, you worked in my house, and I never asked your name. I mean, I knew your name was Abigail, but I never asked anything else. Where you're from, if you have family. I treated you like furniture. Abigail's expression softened, but stayed guarded. You were not unkind, Mr. Dickinson, just absent. That's worse, Patrick said. Cruelty you can see. Absence, you just disappear. They sat in silence for a moment. Rain started, light and cold, tapping against the windshield. Patrick watched the drops streak down the glass and thought about all the things he'd missed. The late-night meetings, the security changes, the way Catherine controlled his food, his schedule, his medication, the way she'd isolated him while making it look like care. The poisoning was not sudden. It was slow, intentional, invisible, built into routines he trusted, hidden inside gestures that looked like love. And Abigail had seen it, quietly, carefully, without saying a word until the moment she had to act, because speaking earlier would have cost her job, or worse. How long have you known? Patrick asked. 3 weeks, Abigail said. Maybe 4. I started noticing you were weaker. Catherine started asking me strange questions. About my schedule. About whether I had family nearby. About whether anyone would miss me if I left suddenly. It felt wrong. So, you started watching? Abigail nodded. I started keeping notes. I saved the residue from your teacup. I listened at doors I should not have been near. And when I heard them tonight, talking about finishing it, I knew I had to choose. Watch you die or risk everything. You chose me, Patrick said, his voice breaking. Abigail looked at him directly. I chose what was right. Patrick closed his eyes. The poisoning was slow, intentional, and invisible, but so was the woman who saved him, and he'd almost let both slip by unnoticed. Abigail Tillman grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where the walls were thin and the heat only worked half the winter. Her mother cleaned office buildings downtown. Her father drove a delivery truck until his back gave out. Abigail learned early that survival meant noticing things other people missed, the landlord's mood, before asking about late rent, the smell of gas before the stove caught fire, the look in someone's eyes right before they lied. By the time she was 32, Abigail had worked a dozen jobs: retail, restaurants, hotel housekeeping. Then she saw the listing: private estate in Greenwich, live-out position, competitive pay. She applied, interviewed, and started the following Monday. The Dickinson house was the largest place she'd ever worked. 12 rooms, marble floors, art on the walls worth more than her entire life. Patrick Dickinson was polite but distant. Spoke to her maybe twice a month. Catherine Dickinson was different. She watched, asked questions, smiled in a way that never reached her eyes. Abigail never trusted her. Not fully. There was something careful about the way Catherine moved through the house. Something controlled. Like she was always performing a role and checking to see if anyone noticed. 6 years passed. Abigail learned the rhythms of the house. Patrick left early, came home late, traveled constantly. Catherine hosted luncheons, attended charity events, managed the household with precision. They seemed fine. Functional. Wealthy people living wealthy lives. Then 3 weeks ago, everything changed. Abigail had been cleaning the upstairs hallway when she heard voices from the master bedroom. Catherine's voice. Another man's voice. Not Patrick. She moved closer, ear to the wall. They were laughing, low and intimate, the kind of laugh that meant secrets. 2 nights later, Abigail saw it. She'd been taking trash from the kitchen when she glanced through the doorway into the butler's pantry. Catherine stood at the counter, back to the door, measuring white powder from a small glass vial into a porcelain teacup. Careful, precise, like a pharmacist. Then she added hot water, stirred, and carried the cup upstairs, Patrick's evening tea. Abigail's stomach turned. She waited until Catherine was gone, then dug through the trash, found the vial in a folded napkin. Tiny, unlabeled, still had residue inside. Abigail wrapped it in tissue and hid it in her coat pocket. That night, she started keeping notes, dates, times, what she saw, what she heard. She wrote everything in the margins of her prayer book, the one her mother had given her before she died. Small handwriting, coded language, Things that would look like scripture if anyone found it. December 10th. CT measured powder. PT dizzy at breakfast. December 14th. Late meeting. RK arrived 11 p.m. December 18th. CT asked about my family, where they live, if anyone checks on me. That question terrified Abigail more than anything else, because it wasn't casual, it was reconnaissance. Catherine was figuring out if anyone would notice if Abigail disappeared. Abigail started listening at doors she shouldn't be near, standing in hallways longer than necessary, pretending to fold laundry outside the study while voices drifted through the crack. She heard Roland Keene's name, heard financial terms she didn't understand, heard the word transfer, the word overseas, the phrase after he's gone. And then 3 days ago, she heard her own name, Catherine and Roland in the study. Door half open, Abigail frozen in the hallway, dust cloth in hand. Catherine's voice, calm and businesslike. "What about the maid?" Roland's response. "After tonight, she won't be a problem." Abigail's hands went numb. She backed away slowly, quietly, heart slamming against her ribs. They weren't just planning Patrick's death, they were planning hers. That night, Abigail sat in her small apartment in Norwalk, prayer book open on the table, notes staring back at her. She had two choices: walk away, quit, disappear before they could deal with her, or act, risk everything, try to save a man who barely knew her name. Walking away was safer, smarter. She had no proof, no allies, no authority. If she went to the police, they'd ask for evidence. If she went to Patrick, he'd think she was lying. Jealous. Trying to cause problems. Richmond didn't believe maids over wives. But if she did nothing, Patrick would die, and Abigail would spend the rest of her life knowing she could have stopped it. She thought about her mother, the woman who'd scrubbed floors for 30 years to keep Abigail fed, who'd taught her to notice things, to trust her gut, to act when action mattered. What would her mother do? Abigail closed the prayer book, made her decision. She would act, even if it cost her job, even if it cost her life. Because watching a man die when you could stop it wasn't survival. It was surrender. December 24th, Christmas Eve. Patrick came home early, unannounced. Abigail was in the kitchen when she heard the front door open, heard his footsteps. And then, through the doorway, she saw Catherine and Roland appear in the living room, saw them tense, saw Roland reach for his phone. Abigail didn't think. She ran, grabbed Patrick, covered his mouth, dragged him into the closet, because in that moment, she understood. If Patrick walked into that living room, he would never walk out. This was the moment. Act or watch him die. And Abigail Tillman, daughter of a cleaning woman from Bridgeport, chose to act. Abigail pulled back onto I-95, headlights cutting through rain. Patrick sat rigid in the passenger seat, hand still reaching for his pocket. His phone, his lifeline, his connection to everything that made him powerful. Abigail saw the movement. "No," she said firmly. "Absolutely not." Patrick's hand froze. "I need to call someone. My lawyer, my accountant, someone who can help." Abigail kept her eyes on the road. Your phone is linked to your car. Your watch is linked to your phone. Your security system is linked to everything. Catherine has access to all of it. Patrick stared at her. "That's impossible. I have encryption. Passwords." Abigail glanced at him. "You're married. You share accounts. You gave her access years ago for emergencies. She knows your passwords. She knows your patterns. One call, and she knows exactly where you are." Patrick's chest tightened. The technology he'd relied on for years had become a weapon. Every device, every app, every system designed to make his life easier was now a tracking beacon leading Catherine straight to him. "Give me your phone," Abigail said. "And your watch." Patrick hesitated. These devices contained his entire life. Contacts, emails, financial access. Without them, he was cut off, powerless. But Abigail was right. If Catherine could track him, the devices weren't tools. They were traps. He pulled out his phone, removed his smartwatch, handed them both to Abigail. She rolled down her window and threw them into the darkness. Patrick watched them disappear, felt something inside him break. 48 years of building power, gone in 2 seconds. They exited the highway near Norwalk. Abigail took side streets, avoiding main roads, checking the rearview mirror every few seconds. Patrick's hands started shaking. Not from fear, from the poison. His body was failing in real time. "We need to go back," Patrick said suddenly. "I need to get evidence. Files, security footage, something." Abigail shook her head. "We barely made it out alive. Going back is suicide. But without proof, no one will believe me. Catherine will say, 'I'm having a breakdown.' Roland will back her up. I'll look insane." Abigail's voice stayed calm. "We have proof. The residue from your teacup. My notes. We'll test it. We'll find someone trustworthy. But not tonight." Patrick wanted to argue, but another wave of nausea hit him. He leaned forward, breathing hard. Abigail glanced over, concerned. "We're almost there. Hold on." They passed through a neighborhood Patrick had never seen. Small houses, chain-link fences, cars parked on lawns. This was Abigail's world, the one he'd never thought about, never cared about. The world of people who worked in his house but lived somewhere he couldn't imagine. Abigail turned into a narrow driveway, a modest apartment building, peeling paint, rusted railings. She parked in the back, engine off, and turned to Patrick. "My apartment is on the second floor. Can you walk?" Patrick nodded, though he wasn't sure. He opened the door and stepped out. Cold air hit his face. His legs wobbled. Abigail was beside him instantly, arm around his waist, supporting his weight. They moved toward the stairs. Patrick's vision blurred. He gripped the railing, pulled himself up step by step. Abigail unlocked her door and guided him inside. The apartment was small, one bedroom, tiny kitchen, worn furniture. But it was warm, safe, hidden. "Bathroom is there," Abigail said, pointing. Patrick stumbled toward it, fell to his knees, and vomited into the toilet, his body convulsing, poison purging itself in violent waves. He stayed there for 10 minutes, shaking, sweating, barely able to breathe. When he finally emerged, Abigail had water waiting, crackers, a blanket. "Sit," she said, guiding him to the couch. Patrick collapsed onto it, every muscle screaming. Abigail covered him with the blanket, handed him the water. "Small sips," she instructed. Patrick obeyed. The water tasted like metal. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped the glass. Abigail took it from him, set it on the table. "You need to rest," she said. "Your body is fighting hard." "How long?" Patrick whispered. "How long have they been poisoning me?" Abigail sat in the chair across from him. "I think 3 months, maybe longer." It was slow, deliberate. Enough to weaken you, but not enough to raise suspicion. Patrick closed his eyes. 3 months. 90 days of Catherine kissing him goodnight after serving poison. 90 days of trusting the woman who was killing him. How do you come back from that? His phone buzzed. Then he remembered. He didn't have his phone anymore. It was gone, thrown into the darkness on I-95. But he could still feel the phantom vibration, still feel the pull of the life he'd been ripped from. "I had everything," Patrick said quietly. "Money, power, influence, and none of it mattered. None of it saved me." Abigail's voice was gentle but firm. "Money doesn't notice things, Mr. Dickinson. People do, and most people weren't paying attention. But you were." Abigail nodded. "Because I had to be. People like me, we survive by noticing what people like you miss." Patrick looked at her. Really looked. This woman who lived in a one-bedroom apartment in Norwalk, who drove a 15-year-old sedan, who made maybe a tenth of what he spent on a single business dinner. She had saved his life, not his lawyers, not his security team, not his wealth. Her. "Thank you," Patrick whispered. Abigail stood. "Don't thank me yet," she said. "We still have to prove what they did, and that means staying alive long enough to fight back." She walked to the window, checked the street below. No unfamiliar cars, no movement. They were safe, for now. But Abigail knew Catherine wouldn't stop looking. And when she realized Patrick was gone, the hunt would begin. Patrick lay back on the couch, exhaustion pulling him under. His body was failing, his empire was collapsing, his marriage was a murder plot. But for the first time in 3 months, he wasn't drinking poison. And the woman who'd spent 6 years invisible in his house was now the only reason he was still breathing. They'd reached Abigail's apartment. and the real fight was just beginning. Patrick woke at 4 in the morning, drenched in sweat. His heart raced. His hands trembled. The room spun. Abigail appeared in the doorway, already dressed. She knelt beside the couch. "Mr. Dickinson, can you hear me?" Patrick nodded weakly. His throat burned. His vision doubled. "This is bad," he whispered. "I know." Abigail pulled out her phone. "I'm calling someone I trust." She dialed. Waited. A woman's voice answered, groggy. "This is Maribel." Abigail's voice was urgent. "I need you. Now. It's an emergency." 20 minutes later, a woman in her 50s arrived. Short gray hair, kind eyes, carrying a medical bag. Maribel Reyes. She'd been a hospice nurse for 30 years before retiring. Abigail had met her at church, trusted her completely. Maribel knelt beside Patrick, checked his pulse, looked into his eyes with a penlight. "How long has he been like this?" 3 months of gradual decline, Abigail said. "Tonight it got worse. I think he's been poisoned. Sedatives. Long-term exposure." Maribel's face went serious. She pulled out a blood pressure cuff, wrapped it around Patrick's arm. "Tell me his symptoms." "Dizziness, weakness, memory lapses, nausea, tremors. Tonight he vomited multiple times." Maribel nodded, taking notes. "Sounds like benzodiazepine poisoning. Long-acting sedatives. They build up in the system over time, cause exactly what you're describing." She looked at Patrick. "Have you been taking any medications? Supplements? Anything unusual?" Patrick's voice was hoarse. "My wife. She made me tea. Every night. Juices. Supplements." Maribel's expression darkened. "And you trusted her?" Patrick closed his eyes. "I did." Maribel finished her examination. "He needs fluids, rest, time for his body to metabolize what's already in his system. But if he'd kept drinking that tea, another week would have been fatal. Maybe less." Patrick felt the words like a punch. 1 more week. He'd been days away from death. "I need a sample," Maribel said to Abigail. "Whatever residue you have. I know someone who can test it discreetly. No official channels, no records." Abigail retrieved the small vial from her coat, handed it to Maribel. "How long for results?" 2 days, maybe 3. Maribel tucked it into her bag. "In the meantime, keep him hydrated, keep him still, and keep him hidden. If someone wanted him dead, they'll keep trying." After Maribel left, Abigail made another call, this one to a man named Howard Lasker, retired state investigator. Abigail had cleaned his house years ago. He'd been kind, fair. She'd kept his number. Howard arrived at noon. Tall, late 60s, sharp eyes that missed nothing. He listened while Abigail explained everything. The poisoning, the overheard conversation, the escape. When she finished, Howard leaned back in his chair. "You did the right thing getting him out." Patrick spoke from the couch, voice weak. "Why can't we go to the police?" Howard's expression was grim. "Because your wife is smart. She'll have covered her tracks. She'll say you're having a breakdown. She'll produce doctors who'll testify you've been acting erratic. She'll turn this into a competency hearing before you can say conspiracy." Patrick's chest tightened. "So I'm trapped." "Not trapped," Howard corrected. "Outmaneuvered. For now. We need evidence. Real evidence. Video, audio, financial records. Something undeniable." Abigail spoke up. "There's security footage. Old server in the wine cellar. Patrick doesn't use it anymore, but it might still be recording." Howard nodded. "That's a start. But getting it means going back into that house." Patrick tried to sit up. "I'll go." "No," Abigail said firmly. "You can barely stand. They see you, they'll finish what they started." "Then I'll go," Howard said. "But I need access codes, layout, timing." They spent the next hour planning. Patrick drew a map of the estate from memory, marked the wine cellar, identified blind spots in the security system. Howard took notes, asked questions, calculated risks. Meanwhile, Patrick's phone, the one Abigail had thrown away, rang 37 times in a drainage ditch off I-95, Catherine's name flashing over and over. Each call growing more frantic. Each voicemail more desperate. "Patrick, where are you? Patrick, please call me. Patrick, I'm worried. Are you okay?" Abigail's own phone buzzed once. A text from an unknown number. "This is Catherine Dickinson. Have you seen my husband? Please respond immediately. Abigail showed Patrick the message. He stared at it. The urge to respond was overwhelming, to explain, to confront, to demand answers. But Abigail shook her head. Not yet. She's hunting. Any response gives her a direction. Patrick's hands clenched. She's been poisoning me for months and now she's pretending to be worried? That's what makes her dangerous, Howard said. She's committed. She'll play the concerned wife until the moment she gets another chance to kill you. And next time, she won't be subtle. Patrick felt rage building. Shame. Disbelief. How had he married someone capable of this? How had he shared a bed, a life, a home with a woman who measured out his death in teaspoons? We need proof, Patrick said, voice hard. We go back. We get the footage. We end this. Howard nodded. Tomorrow night. Christmas. They'll be distracted. Guards minimal. We move fast. In and out. What if we're caught? Patrick asked. Howard's expression was grim. Then we'd better not get caught. Abigail looked at both men. I'm going with you. Patrick started to protest. Abigail cut him off. I know that house better than anyone. I know where the cameras are, where the blind spots are, where Catherine hides things. You need me. Howard studied her. She's right, and if something goes wrong, we'll need someone who can move through that house without raising suspicion. Patrick wanted to argue, wanted to protect her, but Abigail had already risked everything to save him. She'd earned the right to finish what she started. Fine, Patrick said. We go together. We get the proof, and we make sure Catherine and Roland pay for every single day they stole from me. The plan was set. Tomorrow night, they would return to the house that had become a trap, and this time, they would take back control. They arrived at 11:30 on Christmas night. Howard parked 3 blocks away, lights off, engine cooling. The neighborhood was dark, quiet. Most families inside, wrapping gifts, drinking wine, oblivious to what was happening down the street. Patrick sat in the back seat, dressed in black, baseball cap pulled low. His body still weak, but his mind sharp, anger fueling him now. Abigail sat beside him, calm, focused. She'd changed into dark clothes, hair tied back, yellow cleaning gloves tucked in her pocket. Howard checked his watch. 30 minutes, in and out. No mistakes. They approached through the woods behind the estate. Abigail led, moving through trees she'd walked past for 6 years. Patrick followed, legs unsteady but determined. Howard brought up the rear, scanning for movement, for lights, for any sign they'd been noticed. The back fence was tall but unlocked. Staff entrance. Abigail knew the code. She punched it in. The gate clicked open. They slipped through, staying low, moving fast. The house loomed ahead, Christmas lights still glowing, beautiful and terrible. Cameras covered the yard. Abigail pointed to the blind spots, gaps in coverage Patrick had never noticed. They moved in shadows, avoiding motion sensors, staying close to the hedge line. Patrick's heart pounded. This was his house, his property, and he was sneaking through it like a criminal. They reached the side entrance. Staff door. Abigail pulled out a key she wasn't supposed to have. She'd made a copy years ago, just in case. The door opened silently. They stepped inside. The house was warm, quiet, smelled like cinnamon and pine. Patrick heard voices upstairs, Catherine and Roland, talking, laughing, celebrating Christmas while searching for the man they'd tried to kill. Abigail motioned. They moved through the kitchen, past the counter where the poisoned tea had sat, down a narrow hallway toward the back of the house. Patrick's legs shook. Every step felt like walking through a graveyard. The wine cellar was through a door most people forgot existed. Patrick had built it years ago, back when he cared about collecting rare bottles. Now it was storage, dust, forgotten things. They descended the stairs, flashlight beams cutting through darkness. The server was in the corner, old, obsolete. Patrick had upgraded the main security system 5 years ago and never bothered removing the backup. It sat there, humming quietly, recording everything. Howard knelt, pulled out cables, connected a portable drive. Started downloading. "This'll take 10 minutes, he whispered. 10 minutes felt like hours. Patrick stood near the stairs, listening. Abigail searched the shelves, looking for anything else. Financial documents, hidden records, anything Catherine might have stashed. The footage played on Howard's laptop screen, grainy but clear, dated 3 weeks ago, the butler's pantry, Catherine standing at the counter. And there it was, the moment Abigail had seen. Catherine measuring white powder from a small vial into a teacup, careful, precise, then adding hot water, stirring, carrying it upstairs. Howard clicked forward. Another clip. Catherine and Roland in Patrick's study. Door half open. Their voices low but audible on the recording. "The inheritance transfers by February," Roland said. "Once he's declared incompetent, you'll have full control." Catherine nodded. "And if he resists?" Roland's smile was cold. "He won't be conscious long enough to resist." Patrick's hands clenched. There it was. Undeniable. Recorded. Proof. Footsteps sounded above them. Close. Patrick froze. Abigail's eyes went wide. Howard kept downloading, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Almost done," he mouthed. The footsteps moved toward the wine cellar door. A voice. Catherine's. "I thought I heard something down here." Roland's response. "Probably just the heating system." Catherine wasn't convinced. Patrick heard the door handle turn. Abigail moved fast, grabbed Patrick, pulled him behind a wine rack. Howard closed the laptop, shoved it in his bag, ducked behind a stack of crates. The door opened. Light spilled down the stairs. Catherine descended slowly, heels clicking on stone. She reached the bottom, looked around. Her phone's flashlight swept the room. Patrick held his breath, pressed against the wall, heart slamming against his ribs. The light passed over the wine rack, inches from Patrick's face. Abigail's hand gripped his wrist. "Don't move. Don't breathe." Catherine walked closer, stopped, stared at the server in the corner. Patrick saw her expression change, confusion, then realization, then fear. "She knows," Patrick thought. "She knows we're here." Catherine pulled out her phone, started dialing. "Roland, I think someone's been in the house. Get down here now." Howard made his move, stepped out from behind the crates. "Mrs. Dickinson." Catherine spun, phone dropping. "Who are you?" Howard didn't answer, just moved past her, up the stairs. Abigail grabbed Patrick, pulled him after Howard. They ran. Catherine screamed, "Roland, they're here. Stop them." They burst through the wine cellar door, into the hallway. Roland appeared from the living room, saw them, charged forward. Howard shoved him back. Abigail pulled Patrick toward the exit. They hit the side door, stumbled outside, ran for the fence. Behind them, lights flooded the yard. Catherine's voice screaming, "Call the police! Call security! They broke into our house!" But it was too late. Patrick, Abigail, and Howard were through the gate, into the woods, running hard. They reached the car. Engine started, pulled away. No one followed. Howard drove fast, silent, focused. Patrick sat in the back, chest heaving, hands shaking. But in his pocket was a portable drive. And on that drive was video footage of his wife preparing poison. Audio of her and Roland planning his murder. Undeniable proof. They'd gone into enemy territory, and they'd come out with everything they needed. Howard made the calls from a burner phone. Careful, strategic. He contacted a federal prosecutor he'd worked with years ago, trusted her completely. Her name was Vivian Gershwin. She specialized in fraud, conspiracy, domestic violence cases that crossed state lines. She listened to everything, reviewed the footage, confirmed the audio. When she finished, her voice was cold. "This is attempted murder, financial fraud, conspiracy. I'll have agents ready, but we need to do this publicly. If we arrest them quietly, they'll lawyer up, claim coercion, disappear into the system. We need witnesses. We need a moment they can't deny." Patrick understood. Private arrests meant private defense. Public exposure meant public accountability. "Where?" he asked. "The Bruce Museum Christmas Gala," Howard said. "Tomorrow night. Catherine's on the planning committee. She'll be there. So will Roland, donors, press, society people. Everyone who matters in Greenwich." Patrick's hands tightened. "That's my wife's event. She organized it." "Exactly," Vivian said through the speakerphone, "which means she'll feel safe, confident. She thinks you're dead or dying somewhere. She'll walk in like she owns the room. And that's when we take her down." The plan took shape over the next 18 hours. Vivian coordinated with federal agents. Howard arranged surveillance at the museum. Patrick prepared himself mentally, physically, emotionally. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. His body was still weak from poison, but rage kept him upright. Rage and the need for justice. Abigail sat in the corner of Howard's office, quiet, watching. Patrick noticed. "You don't have to come," he said. "You've done enough." Abigail looked at him. "If I don't come, Catherine will say I kidnapped you, that I manipulated you, that I'm the criminal. She'll turn this around, make herself the victim. I need to be there. I need them to see me standing beside you." Patrick nodded. She was right. Abigail wasn't just a witness. She was evidence. Proof that someone had noticed, someone had acted, someone had cared. That evening, Patrick rehearsed. Howard played the role of a reporter. Asked questions Patrick would face. "Where have you been? Why didn't you call police?" "How do you know your wife tried to kill you?" Patrick answered carefully. Precisely. No emotion. Just facts. Just evidence. Just the truth. Delivered calmly, undeniably. But inside, Patrick was terrified. Not of Catherine. Of himself. Of what he'd say when he saw her. Of whether he'd break down or lash out or lose control. Howard saw it. "You don't have to speak," he said. "The footage speaks for itself. Let the agents handle the arrest. You just have to show up. Alive." Meanwhile, across town, Catherine Dickinson prepared for the gala. She stood in front of her bedroom mirror, applying lipstick, adjusting pearls. She looked beautiful, composed, triumphant. Roland sat on the bed behind her, scrolling through his phone. "Any word from the police?" Catherine asked. Roland shook his head. "Nothing. They filed a missing persons report, but there's no urgency. They think he's having a breakdown. Wandering. They'll find him eventually." Catherine smiled. "By then, it'll be too late. His body's already failing. Even if someone finds him, they'll assume natural causes. Stress, heart failure. No one will question it." Roland stood, walked to her, placed his hands on her shoulders. "You did well. Stayed calm. Played the worried wife perfectly." Catherine met his eyes in the mirror. "I've been playing that role for years. What's a few more days?" They laughed. Soft, intimate, secure in their plan, secure in their control. They had no idea Patrick was alive, no idea the footage existed, no idea federal agents were already positioning themselves at the Bruce Museum, waiting. Catherine and Roland arrived at the gala at 7:30. Cameras flashed. Reporters called out questions. "Mrs. Dickinson, any news on your husband?" Catherine's face shifted into practiced concern. "We're doing everything we can to find him. Please keep Patrick in your prayers." Inside, the museum was glowing. Christmas lights, ice sculptures, champagne flowing, donors mingling. Catherine moved through the crowd like royalty, accepting condolences, receiving sympathy, playing her part flawlessly. Roland stayed close, scanning the room, making sure no one asked too many questions, making sure Catherine stayed composed. They were a team, synchronized, confident. At 8 o'clock, the main doors opened again. A man stepped inside, suit, no tie, baseball cap. He removed the cap slowly, looked around the room, and every head turned. Patrick Dickinson, alive, standing, staring directly at his wife. The room went silent. Catherine's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattered on the marble floor. Her face drained of color. Roland froze, mouth open, speechless. Patrick walked forward. Slowly, steadily, every step deliberate. Behind him, Abigail entered. Then, Howard. Then 4 federal agents in dark suits. Patrick stopped 10 feet from Catherine. Looked at her. Really looked. This woman he'd loved, trusted, married. This woman who'd measured poison into his tea for 3 months, while kissing him goodnight. "Hello, Catherine," Patrick said quietly. The room held its breath. And the last performance began. The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, phones raised, cameras snapping. Patrick Dickinson, missing for 2 days, presumed dead by some, stood alive in the center of the Bruce Museum ballroom. Catherine stared at him like he was a ghost. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Patrick," she finally whispered. "Oh my God, Patrick, where have you been? We've been so worried." She moved toward him, arms outstretched, tears forming. Perfect performance. But Patrick stepped back. Don't. Catherine froze. Patrick, please. You're not well. You need help. Let me take you home. I'm not going anywhere with you, Patrick said, voice steady. And I'm not sick. I was poisoned. The room went silent. Catherine's face shifted. Confusion, concern, fear flickering beneath. Patrick, that's not true. You've been under so much stress. You're confused. Patrick pulled a small drive from his pocket, held it up. This is security footage from our wine cellar. Footage you forgot existed. It shows you preparing poison, measuring it, stirring it into my tea. For 3 months. Catherine's face went pale. That's not, her voice cracked. Someone doctored that. Someone's trying to frame me. Roland stepped forward, voice hard. This is insane. Patrick, you've clearly had some kind of breakdown. We need to get you medical attention. Now. Howard moved beside Patrick. I'm Howard Lasker, retired state investigator. I retrieved that footage myself. It's authentic, time-stamped, unaltered. Vivian Gershwin stepped forward next. Federal prosecutor. Identification raised. We've reviewed the evidence. Audio, video, medical records. Mr. Dickinson was systematically poisoned with long-acting sedatives over a period of 3 months. The poisoning was deliberate, calculated, and documented. Catherine's lawyer instincts kicked in. I want my attorney. I'm not saying anything without representation. Vivian nodded. That's your right. But you should know, we also have financial records showing fraudulent inheritance transfers, documents with forged signatures, emails between you and Mr. Keene discussing control of Patrick Dickinson's estate after his anticipated death. Roland's face drained. Those emails are privileged? Attorney-client communication? You're not an attorney, Mr. Keene, Vivian said coldly. You're a business partner, and conspiracy to commit murder is not protected speech. Museum security moved to the exits. Lock the doors. No one leaves until we've taken statements, one agent announced. The crowd shifted, nervous, trapped, witnesses to something they couldn't unsee. Catherine's composure finally cracked. Her voice rose. This is ridiculous. Patrick, tell them I would never hurt you. I'm your wife. I love you. Patrick's voice was ice. You doubled the dose on Christmas Eve. I heard you say it. I was hiding in a closet in my own home while you and Roland discussed finishing me off that night. Catherine's eyes darted, looking for escape. Finding none. That's a lie. Patrick, you're confused. You've been poisoned, yes, but not by me. Maybe the staff, maybe someone else, but not me. Abigail stepped forward. Every eye in the room turned to her. The maid, invisible until this moment. I saw you, Abigail said quietly. December 10th. You measured white powder from a glass vial into Mr. Dickinson's teacup. I saved the residue. It tested positive for diazepam. High concentration. Catherine's face twisted. You're behind this? You kidnapped him. You manipulated him. You poisoned him yourself, and now you're framing me. Abigail didn't flinch. I have notes, dates, times, observations, written in my prayer book over 3 weeks. I documented everything before I acted. Catherine turned to the crowd. She's lying. She's a disgruntled employee. She wanted money. She wanted attention. This is extortion. Then, explain the footage, Patrick said. Explain the audio recording of you and Roland discussing my inheritance. Explain why you reassigned my security staff 2 weeks ago. Explain why you asked Abigail about her family, about who would miss her if she disappeared. Catherine's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came. Roland tried to run, pushed through the crowd toward a side exit. 2 agents grabbed him, slammed him against the wall. Hands behind your back. Now. Roland struggled, screamed. This is assault. I'm a businessman. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent, the agent said, cuffing him. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Catherine collapsed, knees hitting marble, hands covering her face, sobs tearing through her. Not real sobs, performance sobs, desperate sobs. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she gasped. I just needed. Needed what? Patrick asked, stepping closer. Needed my money? Needed my company? Needed me dead? Catherine looked up, mascara running, face destroyed. I needed to be free. Patrick stared at her. Then you should have asked for a divorce. Catherine laughed. Bitter. Broken. A divorce would have cost me everything. This way, I kept it all. Agents moved in. Catherine Dickinson, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and forgery. Stand up. Catherine didn't move. They pulled her to her feet, cuffed her. Read her rights while cameras flashed and witnesses filmed and the room dissolved into chaos. Patrick stood in the center of it all, alive, vindicated, destroyed, Abigail beside him, silent, strong, the woman who'd saved him when everyone else had either betrayed him or looked away. The doors opened. Agents led Catherine and Roland out. Flashbulbs exploded. Reporters shouted questions. Catherine screamed denials. Roland went silent, broken. Inside the museum, the crowd slowly began to move again. Whispers, shock, disbelief. The Christmas gala that was supposed to celebrate charity had become the stage for justice. Public, undeniable, witnessed by everyone who mattered. Patrick turned to Abigail. Thank you. Abigail nodded once. You're welcome. And the silence finally broke into chaos. Patrick spent 3 weeks in a private medical facility outside Hartford, detoxing, recovering, learning to trust food again. Every meal required conscious effort. Every sip of water came with doubt. The poison had left his body, but the fear remained. Abigail visited twice, brought books, sat quietly while Patrick slept. She didn't need to say much. Her presence was enough. Proof that he wasn't alone. Proof that someone had seen him when he'd become invisible to himself. The media frenzy was relentless. Catherine Dickinson and Roland Keene arrested at Christmas gala. Billionaire survives attempted murder by wife and business partner. Maid saves employer's life, exposes conspiracy. Every network ran the story. Every paper printed the footage, stills. Catherine's face. Roland's denial. Patrick's hollow-eyed return from the dead. Catherine's trial was set for March. Roland's for April. Both faced federal charges. Attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, forgery. Their lawyers tried everything. Claimed coercion. Claimed manipulation. Claimed Patrick had fabricated evidence during a mental breakdown. But the footage was undeniable. The audio was clear. The medical evidence was conclusive. They'd poisoned him. Planned his death. Nearly succeeded. By February, Patrick had returned to his estate. But it didn't feel like home anymore. Every room held ghosts. The kitchen where Catherine had measured poison. The closet where Abigail had saved him. The living room where his wife and business partner had calmly discussed his murder. He put the house on the market, sold it within a month, moved into a smaller place in Westport, something manageable, something without memories soaked into the walls. His company restructured. Half the board resigned. Investors pulled out. Patrick didn't fight it. He'd spent years building an empire, and it had meant nothing when the poison started. Power hadn't saved him. Attention had. And the only person paying attention was the woman he'd spent 6 years ignoring. In March, Patrick held a press conference, not about the trial, about Abigail. He stood at a podium in a hotel conference room, reporters packed in tight, cameras rolling. I'm here today to publicly acknowledge the woman who saved my life. Abigail Tillman worked in my home for 6 years. I barely spoke to her. I didn't know where she was from. I didn't know her story. I didn't see her as a person, just as staff, just as someone who cleaned and disappeared. Patrick paused, looked directly at the cameras. When my wife was poisoning me, when my business partner was planning my death, when everyone I trusted was either betraying me or looking away, Abigail noticed. She documented. She risked her life to pull me out of that house. She hid me. She protected me. She made sure I survived long enough to fight back. His voice cracked. I owe her everything, and I spent 6 years treating her like furniture. That's on me. That's my shame. And I'm spending the rest of my life making sure people like Abigail are seen, are valued, are protected. After the conference, Patrick established a foundation, the Abigail Tillman Foundation for Domestic Worker Rights, legal support, medical coverage, emergency assistance, advocacy. Everything Abigail hadn't had. Everything workers like her deserved. Abigail resisted at first. "I don't need my name on anything," she told Patrick. "This isn't about me." Patrick looked at her. "It's exactly about you. You were invisible because people like me made you invisible. If your name is on this, people have to see you. They have to remember." Abigail finally agreed. Not for herself, for the others. The women and men who cleaned houses, raised children, cooked meals, and moved through wealthy homes like ghosts. Necessary but unseen. Trusted but unvalued. Human but treated as less. By summer, Catherine's trial ended. Guilty on all counts. 20 years federal prison. No parole. Roland got 15. Both appeals denied. Justice delivered. Not perfectly. Not completely. But enough. Patrick visited Abigail's apartment in Norwalk one last time. She was moving. Better place. Better neighborhood. Financial security Patrick had insisted on. Not charity. Compensation. For saving his life. For risking everything. For seeing him when no one else did. They sat on her porch. Evening light soft through the trees. Patrick spoke quietly. "I keep thinking about that night. When you grabbed me, pulled me into that closet, you had every reason to walk away. To let me die. I'd spent 6 years not seeing you. Why did you save me?" Abigail looked at him, her eyes calm, steady. "Because it was right. Because I saw someone in danger and I could help. It's not more complicated than that. But you risked everything." Abigail nodded. "I did. But watching you die would have cost more. I'd have spent the rest of my life knowing I could have acted and didn't. That's worse than any risk." Patrick's throat tightened. "I don't deserve you." Abigail smiled. Small, kind. "This isn't about deserving, Mr. Dickinson. It's about seeing. You didn't see me for 6 years. That's true, but now you do. And maybe that's enough." Patrick left as the sun set, drove back to Westport, sat in his modest living room and thought about power. Real power. Not wealth, not influence, not boardrooms or deals or empires built on numbers. Real power was noticing, paying attention, acting when action mattered, choosing courage over comfort, choosing right over safe, and understanding that the most important people in your life might be the ones you've spent years overlooking. Patrick had survived because the least visible person in his house refused to let him die. Because Abigail Tillman, daughter of a cleaning woman from Bridgeport, maid in a billionaire's mansion, had seen what everyone else missed. And for the first time in 48 years, Patrick Dickinson finally understood. Survival didn't come from power. It came from being seen, really seen, by someone willing to act, by the woman he never saw, until she saved his life.